Yo, this is your brother, Aankh Benu, Chief Priest of Nsw, and we are live with Voices of the Diaspora News with the good brother, Nsw Aankh.
Welcome to another episode of Voices of the Diaspora News. Brother Nsw live here with a mastermind, with the scientist, with an author, with a leader, and with a visionary to help Black people around the globe rediscover who we are via our ancient sciences and our oldest religion, which is the Black family. So it becomes my honor and privilege at this time to introduce some present to others a fantastic mind, the chief priest of Nsw Aankh Benu. Welcome, sir.
Dwanate. Yo, this is an honor and a privilege as always. Said mastermind, you was doing your autobiography or was you talking about me or was you Dwanate. Nah, it's always an honor. I'm looking forward to an excellent build as always. Yeah. I'm in the zone, ready to get it rocking. You heard me?
Definitely.
Here on Voices of the Diaspora News. If you don't know now, you know. Y'all need to be blowing this platform up.
So, first question: what has been one of the biggest challenges you've faced and overcome in your path of teaching Kemetic spirituality?
I say the biggest challenge I would say has been the kind of like a reflection of my my ring, my name, right? Benu. Benu is the prototype, if you will, of where the phoenix comes from, right? I think phoenix might even be like the Greek vocalization of Benu. But this life, death, rebirth, this self-immolation, build and destroy, right? Destroy and rebuild, right? Um, that's been the greatest challenge to keep a flexible mind, to be firm but not overly rigid, to the point where you can't allow space and opportunity to for growth and development, for um, your mind to be changed, or for yourself to be pleasantly or unpleasantly surprised, right? Always ultimately pleasantly though, right? For the greater good. But all of that, right, to say, like, you start your journey and you might start in this particular place, and the information that you grab hold to, the schools that you walk into, they help further you along to a point, right? But you know, early on you get into that room, and then you know, you're like, man, I'm so happy to be in this room. I'm so glad I arrived, right? I arrived. And then you learn that there's another room. You see a door, and there's another room. And you wonder, right? You're being told actually that you need to go through that door into that room. You got to leave the room that you've waited all your life, you thought, you feel, to get to and walk through. And the struggle, right, to walk out of that room, that thought, that ideology, that school, and to potentially walk into a new experience, a new paradigm that may challenge, if not completely obliterate, the previous paradigm. And the courage to do that, because certain personalities have certain things that come with it. So if you are a person that draws people, if you are a person that you know, you've been gifted with a mind and a gift of gab to go with it, right? You draw people, you share the ideas that you have, and you do so with a passion and a fervor and a conviction, because at this particular point in time, you believe every word. And you convince through your conviction. And then they walk with you right up into that next door. Are you going to walk through that door? And when you get to the other side of that door, will the people that were with you in this room walk into the next room with you? So the challenge, the courage to face the possibility that you may have not been all the way correct, or you might not have the entire story, right? And the ability to face that within yourself, and then also turn around to your people and say, yo, I was wrong. I don't think I had the whole story. And then close up shop, shut everything down, recall products off the shelf, right? And go soul searching, right? So that you can go through the transformation, the reinvention, the resurrection, the rising from the flames with this new phase. So for me, that's been the biggest challenge, because I'm not the first to, you know, um, make the attempt to reconstruct, Nile Valley culture and spiritual traditions. There were quite a few that came before, and one. Let me say this now. Like to extend condolences to Baba Heru, his family, and his lineage. Right, condolences. For the transition of the elder, now ancestor that I know a lot of people personally that trace their lineage in the Kemetic legacy to Baba Heru, right? So want to give honor and praises to him and you know, condolences to, you know, his close ones. But you know, elders, ancestors such as Baba Heru, such as, you know, Sheikh Diop, such as, you know, Yosef Ben Yakin, right? Um, you know, elders such as Raul Amin, such as Muad Ashby, and um, you know, people that in their own way, you know, Dr. Ashra Kwesi, right? Um, you know, people that in their own way put forth the effort. Anthony Browder, right? Um, to bring the information, to bring people back, to reconstruct something for us on our journey in reclamation, you know, search for and reclamation of our identity and agency. There were many that came before, and on my own personal journey, right? Walking into that information, nourishing myself, being nourished from that information, being transformed by that information, and then wrestling with that information. Um, you know, putting that information on the scales. Wrestling with the idea of questioning and correcting that information. And then making decisions on, you know, what's viable, useful, accurate, what's need to be updated or corrected, and what might just need to be thrown away. And that, how you say, that doing that while also being in a position of leadership has been a great challenge because, you know, folk come at a certain time and they might be coming to, it's like you got a restaurant, right? And, you know, you got a daily special menu. Monday, we serve red beans and rice. Friday, you get a fish plate, right? So on and so forth. And then they come on this day at this time because this is what you're serving. And then one day, they look up and you're no longer serving that, right? So what do? Like, yo, I love the restaurant. I love the food. The food's great. The vibe's great. This, that, and the third, right? But they're no longer serving my favorite meal or the meal that I came here for, that I come here for. Do I walk forward with them in trying this new thing, or you know? And that question I've had to answer within myself, and then that question I've had students, I've had godchildren that had to ask themselves that question. Some continued, many walked away. You know what I mean? You know what I mean?
Definitely.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Yeah.
the first time you went to Kemet, what was it about being in the Nile Valley that prompted you to want to create a situation where you're utilizing your resources to bring people back home via the Khu Khem Kemet Tour?
You know, it's kind of like it's a multifaceted situation there, right? Because before I ever thought about doing it, I was told I was going to do it in divination. Like, yo, I see you working in the desert, right? So, you know, about maybe 4 years before I ever went, I got that in the reading. You know, before going, I never really wanted to go, because you know I always had the feeling that, or the notion that, you know, you be going to visit the Arab Republic of Egypt to see the remnants of Kemet. And so it wasn't really, it was one of them things where if I go, I go, if I don't, I don't. You know, I definitely wasn't looking at it like the way a Muslim might look at a visit to Mecca. You know what I'm saying? Wasn't looking at it like a pilgrimage, or you know, anything like that I needed to do. So when the opportunity presented itself, right? Good brother Rameri, you know, shout out to my brother, you know, over in SA in South Africa. You know, he's like, yo, he called me out the blue one day. Yo, Benu, pack a bag. We're going to Kemet. And I'm like, F out of here, right? Like, I didn't think he was. I thought he was playing. He's like, no, I'm not. He's like, I'm not playing. I'm serious. Like, yo, we are going. We can't be talking about this, and we've never been. It's like that, you know. Which was, you know, for me, it wasn't as um controversial to hear, or let's say it was more of it was a stronger point at that time than it had ever been previously, because, you know, I know teachers that are considered pioneers, you know, in the Kemetic reconstruction effort. I'm not gonna call no names and put nobody on blast, right? But icons that have never been. You know what I mean? Never been, to this day. Never been. And so, and you know, at least for one, a reason or an excuse or whatever the case may be, whatever, right? So, but because that was a school that I walked in and worked in, follow suit. You know, if King of Kings don't, you know, think it's important that, you know what I'm saying? Why should I? So went from that place, and then of course the consumption, burn it up. Let's figure this thing out. And then going through that process to where I arrived at a time where Mary could come to me with that proposition, and I'm like, right, let's go. You know, let's go. Okay. I had already been taking the journey back through the literature, through the resources, through learning the language and all of that, which is, it's a that's another big transition from the beginnings. Now is okay. What did the ancestors have to say? Let them speak for themselves instead of, just making stuff up or doing the okay. This kind of look like this over here, or they got this from over here and mixing some new age. No, 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 no. Let them speak for themselves, right? So going through that journey, learning the language, going through the primary literature, the text and all that. Now he comes with this. Let's go. Physically, let's go. Okay, let's go. Once I get there, though, soon as I touch down, cousin, right? Cousin, my, and I'm not quoting Coming to America on that. No, 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 no. Like my brother, my cousin, cousin same color as me, right? Um, folk grabbing you by the hand and saying, same blood, same blood. And some of you look at them like, right? But this is the sentiment that I experienced from the moment I touched down in Cairo at the airport. This is the experience. So from the first site, I think Saqqara, the Old Kingdom monuments. The cosmologies, which I had already experienced the reality of the Neteru and them playing themselves out in real life and all of that. Like that's already been experienced, but in these sites, right, to experience them at the sites, to experience Anpu at the entrance of the tombs and Saqqara with the dogs and the it's a different thing to actually experience. It's kind of like you're transported, right? Like you're going in your mind to see relics, but once you walk into the space, it's like it comes alive for you because of the time that you're on. It becomes alive for you. The Neteru, the ancestors, the Jericho, right? They revitalize those remains for you in real time when you go. So that is that right there from the moment I touched down, and then it just got deeper and richer and more impactful. The further south, we traveled into the country, the more I begin to realize, oh snap, the Africans are still here. Like nah, they're here. And a lot of the cultural retentions are still there amongst the people. So it's a twofold opportunity, right? The tour affords me the opportunity to do field research in two fashions, right? The work as an independent chematologist, if you will, and cultural reconstructionist, and then an independent ethnographer, because I get to go in and sit with the people, live amongst the people, stay in the villages, visit the Czar people, visit the Nubians, and you know get this information that they've retained, couple it with what I know from the actual text, and then also further couple it with the bloodline that runs throughout the continent and what we find in the other ATRs, throughout the continent to really put this thing back together again. Remember Osir in a very, very authentic way. And so that's really with the experience and the impact that it had on me. At least part of it, I'm like, yo, I gotta bring others back. And when we went the first time, Ramiro and I, we were looking and reading stuff on the walls and finishing the guide statement and this and the third. And he was like, yo, at one point in time, he's just like, okay, enough. Like, who are you? What are you doing here? Right? How do y'all know all of this stuff? Are you some kind of professor or something? Right? Chuckle, right? Something like that, right? He's like, well, if you ever get the opportunity to work here, you should. I said to him, that's exactly what we want to do, and we want to work with you. And very next year, Khu Khem Kemet Tour was born.
Epic. So I want to talk about, well, I ask you about, pardon, remembering Osir, the compilation, the writing process, and going to Kemet. How did it aid your journey in regards to letting our ancestors speak?
Okay. Yeah, I say, so the idea for remembering Osir came about 5 years before I published it. I started on it about 2010, and it was my intent and attempt to address what I refer to as the passion problem within the quote unquote conscious community. Okay. So what did I mean by that? I'm listening to Shechem or Shechem Rawun Nafamin the first. Salute. This is for those that don't know, that's the King of Kings of the Osir Society International. Right. At the time, I'm in the organization, and so he has a lecture called the Sorrows of Osset, right? And then, one day I hear him talking about the importance of a think tank, right? People having a think tank. and he's discussing how, like, Christianity is a think tank, and the church is a think tank, and how the story, the passion, right, of Christ, if you will, the passion is a story that invokes intense emotions, and is a very powerful and even beautiful story. The idea that God loved you so much that he came and died for you, right? It's like the beauty in the story. It evokes the passion to where the people are able to come together and attempt to live the principles in the story, and also work together to do whatever to accomplish their collective goals, right? And he also, in the same breath, admonished um the members of a set to leave the church folk alone, right? I'm not going to say everything that he said, because that's, but essentially they're doing certain things that we ain't doing, as far as handling certain business and getting certain things done and accomplished, right? So until we are able to check certain boxes, etc., so on, you don't want to hear no criticisms about them coming out of our mouths. That was essentially what he said, right? So I'm stewing over it, right? Not the admonishment, but the passion problem, because it's like, you know in the conscious community, we got a lot of information, a lot of knowledge, right? We are the knowers, so to speak, right? And we look back at the church. Many of us left, right? We go down. Oh, they're just emotional. They're over there crying and you know, foaming at the mouth and blah, 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 etc. So on. And there's an air that we have, right? Looking at their passion and conviction, the emotion that's invoked from their myth, their cosmology, and something that we walked out of, and we walked into this information, and many of us left the passion behind. We haven't been able to wrap our passion and conviction and you know around this newfound information, to the point where the information moves us to and mobilizes us to actually organize, unify, and accomplish tangible goals. So this was a conundrum for me, right? It's like, okay, how do I get this? Where is it in Kemet? And the Osirian story, I did a survey of all of the cosmologies, and then it came to me. Nehem. See, in our tradition, it is not the God that comes to save you. No, 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 no. It is you that have come to save God. And it's like the time, it's like this idea's time had come. You hear when an idea's time has come, right? Like around the same time you start to have these movies coming out that had the similar theme, right? So um over the next couple years, you'd have like immortals, right? The gods need a hero, right? That was the promo. Immortals, the gods need a hero, right? I think the first Clash of the Titans, right? Not the old OG joint, but the remake. You know, it's a part where I think Zeus is, you know, being held captive in Hades, right? And you know, he's about to die, and then he sheds a tear, and with like one of his last breaths, he calls his Perseus, right? Like he cries out praise, right? Calls on, he invokes his demigod son, right? His half man, half divine son. And it, you know what I mean? Like, so it's like this idea was getting Baruch, what we call Baruch, convergence, synchronicity with the time. Um, and it was something that I said, this is how we do it. This is how we re-inject the passion and conviction. Do you know who what Neter is? Who what God is? And do you know your responsibility to it? Right? You know, there's a divine being that is locked away, suffocating within you, right? And it is your responsibility as the hero, as the hero, to liberate and resurrect that Neter within you, to become its Henu, its vessel, its ship, right? An avatar in the earth. And until that happens, you, your people, me, our people will never rise to the position of prominence that we held, right? So this idea, remembering Osir, understanding Osir as both the Neter within, aka our Ba or so-called soul, as well as the ancestor spirit within us, our ancestors, reestablishing the covenant with our ancestors, right? It's reestablishing the covenant with our own souls. And you know, this I understood as the key to solving the passion problem in my way, my effort, right? So remember, Gosser started off as the story, me, you know, giving my you know, my you know, exegesis and artistic creative rendition of the Osirian story. And then over time, it grew from the story into an entire exegesis on the tradition. And I knew that it wasn't something because of protocol reasons, right? It wasn't something that I was going to be able to introduce in the organization that I was a part of at the time. So I had to, and again, going back to the beginning, here's that door. Do I walk through this door? So walking through that door, okay, a few people that came in on the side walked through the door with me. But once we got on the other side of that door, they didn't stay too long. Nsw, right? What we call Nsw Beta. right? Okay, let's get into this story. Getting into this story, right? I'm, I'm, I'm looking, the Osirian tradition, the most complete narratives are from the classical Greek, authors, Diodorus, and Herodotus, and so on and so forth. In order to get the like the ancestors' words, you have to actually go through the text. So I'm taking on that task. I'm trying to read everything Kemet. This is a new task. It was never presented as an obligation, where I was coming from. So now let me take the agency and try to read everything I can. And then you run into who translated this. You're reading commentary and you're reading articles and you're reading, these journals and okay. What is it? Is this what the ancestors were saying though? Now you gotta learn the language. So took a year off, stopped teaching just to learn the language. Learn the language, and now I'm reading everything all over again. Okay. And at the same time, I'm still studying other ATRs. I'm studying voodoo. I'm studying Isheshe. I'm studying Palo. I'm studying these Dogon and Igbo and you know really and I'm introduced to Czar and Rob and Rob is the Senegambian, the Lebu people in Senegambia. Their expression of that same Czar Bori tradition, right? Bori with the Hausa. Seeing oh shit, Czar Bori is it's called Bori in Chad, which is northern Nigeria, or Chad, and also, amongst the Hausa in northern Nigeria. So split between the Hausa in Chad and the Hausa in Nigeria is called Bori. It is also called Bori in southern Kemet, southern Egypt today, amongst the Sudanese and the Nubians. They call it Zarbori as well. So all this, right? I'm studying this. I'm reading a book, The Fundamentals of the Yoruba Religion, subtitle Orisha Worship by Chief Fama. And just looking at the table of contents one day, I'm like, yo, I'm seeing all of these different prayers and oriki and epithets or praise names. You use this name for this reason, you use this prayer for this purpose, and blah, 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 and so on. I'm like, yo, this is beautiful. This is beautiful. This is beautiful. Where is this in Kemet? I get up, go over to the shelf, grab the Pertimeru, so-called Book of the Dead, the the yellow joint that Budge put out that had the glyphs in it and the, got Anpu on the cover. Grab that. I turned to the table of contents and I just started reading through it and light bulb went off. It's been here all along. How How didn't you know? Why didn't you see it? Because the orientation, right? The idea that Kemet, right, and African people are Hiram Abiff. You know what I'm saying? We are the the products of a jacking, a robbery, and we have to go to the alleged robbers to get back what was stolen. So we go to India, we go to Kabbalah, we go to China, we go to all of these different places, Western occultists, and so on and so forth, and try to reconstruct it that way, and we, end up with what we end up with. So we're looking at it through an orientation that is filtered through another people's culture, and we're thinking that it's the legitimate article. All right, so now I'm faced with the recognition that it's been here all along. We just wasn't looking at it, head on and accepting it for what it was. And we were still looking at somebody else's attempt at spirituality as, the legitimate article or the standard or ideal. So, what I mean by that, if you understand Oriki in Yoruba culture, then you understand Renu and Kemet. And you'll understand the hymns and the Hesi and Kemet if you understand them in other ATRs. And you'll understand that in order to invoke, if you understand that in order to invoke Shango, you call Shango. In order to invoke Yemonja, you call Yemonja. Right? In order to invoke Obatala, you call Obatala. You call on them in the Yoruba tongue. If you understand that, then it's very easy to understand to call Heru, call Heru. You call Heru by calling Heru, and you don't have to use a Sanskrit mantra to do it. You don't call on Heru by saying Mikael. You don't do it. Right? And that's the it sounds very, very common sense. I mean, it sounds crazy with me saying it, right? Because it's like, huh? Well, yeah, that's the thing. And that's been the second greatest challenge to reviving this culture and tradition, because the big ones, the great ones that came before, well-intentioned, their efforts, that is the way that they approached it. So they brought yoga, they brought, this syncretic, multicultural, expression of Kemet that does not reflect the ancestors in historicity. You know what I mean? So having to address that and correct that in my work reached a point where it said, okay, from here on out, we're only doing ritual utilizing the Medunitaire as we find. The folk that walked through that door with me said, hold on now. I mean, that's a little extreme. You're going too far. You're going too far. How do you know it even works? How do you know it even works? Because we know the Sanskrit works. We know these Hindu mantras work. We know these these Hebrew archangels and 72 names. We know this works. But how do we know that Meduniter you talking about? That calling on Heru and all of these different Renu and roads and so on. How do we know that works? They walked away. I'm heartbroken, crushed, and contemplated quitting. Right? How you say one of them? Oh, you're too arrogant. You're da 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 da, so on and so forth. But how you say you're my leader? I got your back. That was Sunday. Monday come along, right? Well, let's say that was Friday, right? 3 days later, Monday come along. Oh, yeah, get this and the third. And he's the first one. Et tu, Brutus, knife in the back, and then everybody follows suit. Walk away. I'm heartbroken. Heartbroken. And I quit teaching for a few months, several months, and it was Rob Mary. This is before I ever went to Kemet, but I'm already kind of working on this book. Rob Mary sent me an email and he said, all right, now it's time for the Benu to come out the cave. And I told him, I'm thinking about doing a podcast. And I'm thinking about calling it Khu Khem Radio. And he's like, yo, call it Khu Khem. Short and Netchum. That's the way he said it. Short and Netchum. Short and sweet. Khu Khem. And this is your first 20 episodes. He curated my first 20 episodes. This is what you're going to talk about. These are your topics. And I followed it to the T. Till my wings healed, till my legs got back under me. In the heart, right? To want to do it again for someone beyond my own house. So now, right? There's no one with you but your brother and your clan, your wife and daughter. And the Neteru and ancestors we're going to see. You know what I'm saying? If so I kept going and kept researching and kept writing. And, I arrived at an outline. Think the pillars, what I saw as the pillars of African tradition. And I developed an outline, bullet points based on those pillars that became the table of contents for Remember Gosser that I used to structure the other part of the book beyond the story, the exegesis, and so on and so forth. And so now I'm working on this book, reconstructing the tradition based on, you know, what I'm, you know, um, finding to be what the ancestors actually were doing, what they actually were saying while they were doing, why they were doing these things, what was their actual perspective and worldview, so on and so forth. And, with how it survives present day in mind and engaging their words that way. Um, and then also doing this on an ancient computer, right? I had one of them big booty, Dells, or what I'm saying, big back, right? Had one of them big back joints with the big back monitor and the tower computer and I say brick two computers while working on that book. I remember, I say when I tried to publish the book, it was 930 pages. But there are chapters that I lost because I got the blue screen of death while working on it. You know what I'm saying? And so there's shit that I couldn't recover because computer bricked while I was writing. And so stopping and literally crying, and then starting again. And after 4 years work, I go to Kemet. Finally, for the first time. And then the following summer, I release Remember Gosir. And that's I say that's a long story in a nutshell. A long nutshell. But it's the process of writing it, editing it, doing divination every step of the way, doing rituals. In the beginning of the book, there's a foreword that, we have the Netta rule, Sebek, Anpu, and Tahuti speaking in respect to the book through my wife, who is possessed by them, right? Ritual possession, spirit possession, right? That African shit that scare most of us in this day and time, right? Um, that I say, getting them and then hearing what they had to say, because when we brought them down, they could have said, "Nah, this ain't it." They could have said, "You can't put it out." They could have said anything. Right? They could have did a whole lot, right? But they blessed the book, stamped it, because it was written already before I even started. It was written. So it's been very, very, very transformative experience. Full of twists and turns, full of ups and downs, and you know, battle scars and wounds. And you wanna go through this door, you gotta give a finger. You wanna go through this door, you gotta lose an eye. You wanna go right. It's been all of that, right? Um, Another thing, I'm gonna say this here. I don't know if I've ever said it on um live, right? Outside of let's say Hanisu. Um the story that is in the beginning of Remembering Goser and at the and is his own separate book as well, Avenging Goser. Um the story is the story that's found in Kemet, coupled with my own experience in the tradition and initiation. There are things that are in there that are things that I actually experience in real time. There are, how you say, there's a part in the story where Heru looks out. He walks. There's a part where he hears somebody say, "You're gonna die." Spooks him because it hit his ears a certain way. And then after that, everywhere he looked, he saw death. Everywhere he looked, he couldn't get away from it. It surrounded him. And then he reached the point where he said, "Okay, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go afraid, and I'm gonna go free." And he resolved, "I'm gonna go free." That's my own initiation experience that I put in there. So writing the book and also living it, writing the story and living the story, and then telling the story as I read it, as I wrote it, as I lived it.
That's a perfect segue into the final question. How do you utilize Nile Valley culture and Kemetic spirituality from its ancient, authentic space to build a future time via the organizations, via the family, via Black future?
You know, the important thing, right? The key, if you will, is to understand what it is kind of from a very, very functional level. And twofold. It's the cosmology is a clock. All cosmologies are clocks. It's a clock. You know? Um, and like a clock, it does this. As long as that clock got 1 through 12, right? In a circle, and it got them, got an hour hand, got a minute hand, got a second hand, right? You can use that clock tell time. Long as it's tick o'clock, right? Second part of that is it's a language. It's a language not too different from like computer code, right? Or any other language that you might use to communicate with um with people, to convey ideas, to call and get an answer, etc. So on, right? Um it's a language just like that, and then it's a language that you can use to actually interface with the quote unquote spirit and spirit realm and so on and so forth. So from there, you take even though it's a clock, it's not dated anymore. You use it to tell time and to keep time because the forces and the movements of these bodies that correspond to the numbers on this clock, right? And the events that take place with the movement of this clock and the movement of these bodies correspond to the language in these stories, in this cosmology. So, in the course, right, an effort to remember Osir and find Osir, first and foremost, understanding Osir as your ancestors, look at what happened to him. Who was he? Oh, father of civilization. Well, who was your ancestors? Right? He was tricked and trapped in a sarcophagus that was supposed to be or presented to him as though it was a gift. What happened to your ancestors? Our ancestors. He was trapped in this sarcophagus, locked in there, and thrown into the water, and the water took him out of his homeland, out of his native land, into a foreign land. What happened to our ancestors? You know, Peru was born, and he has to get to know his father, though his father is away. So there's a great part of his identity that he's away from. He has to get them and find it through stories. He has to discover it. He has to discover it. He has to search for it. He has to fight for it until it becomes alive and awakened and resurrected within him. And the journey, right, of Offset to remember him, to find these missing pieces of fragmented African consciousness and identity, right? Finding a piece over here in this land, finding a piece over there in this land. Right now, where are we at? We can't even agree on who the hell we are. I'm a this, I'm a that, I'm a Muslim, I'm a Hebrew, I'm Yoruba, I'm Igbo, I'm how you say, I'm FBA. I'm indigenous. all of these things, right? And I'm not saying it to you know denigrate or to be pejorative, right? It's the clock. See, you're on the clock. We on the clock. So, like I said, we go through these motions because that's what the clock dictates. To find and rediscover and reclaim and to revitalize. You know, and then once you find it though, now you gotta fight for your space and place in time to rebuild. Organize according to the clock. Teach according to the clock. Lead according to the clock. Act according to the clock. Right? These, I say, these forces, these Neteru, right? They each represent an aspect, a spectrum of divine African consciousness. And they each also represent a power, a talent on the spectrum of divine African genius. Their societies, their priesthoods, double not only, how you say, not only temples in respect to, you know, them being worshipped, this, that, and the third, blah, 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 blah. They don't care if you worship them. No. These are guilds, right? These are doorways, right? These societies and priesthoods, these temples, like these are access points and an access where the meetings of the realms, the meetings of the planes within our consciousness, within our spirits, where that merger can take place and the spirit can become flesh. You can do the work of Neter in creation. So the priest of Tahuti becomes the writer. The priestess of Sheshat becomes the writer. Right? The priest of Ptah becomes the craftsman, the metallurgist, the lapidary, right? The mason. The priest of Herubehudet becomes the warrior clan, becomes the military, becomes the general. You know, this is the way to understand the word becoming flesh according to clock. You know, and the language, right? The ability to call on, like Ra, you know, call on his son, Herubehudet, to come to his defense. Like Osir calling his son Heru to take his throne, reclaim his throne, right? This is when you speak, you call on this force, you bring it into the world to transform your reality, right? And it's all about being here. It's not about being there, or going there, or leaving here to go there, or to escape here to go there. That's not Kemet. That's not Africa. So building cosmologically, building Earth in the image of heaven, and utilizing the tradition to do it. So each one of these Neteru also represent essential skill societies where our ancestors, they constructed them and organized them for the purpose of solving their problems and meeting their needs within the world, reproducing the knowledge and information, developing the knowledge and information and skill, reproducing skill, and also building the character, you know. And these societies, these priesthoods, these guilds grow into industries and economies that become the lifeblood and engine, right, of the nation in a very real way. So this is nation building and nation running from the sea level to fruition. But you have to understand it for what it is. And, you know, if you think, oh, it's just an alternative spiritual path, or it's just a religion, or it's just, you know what I'm saying, you'd have missed the bulk of it. You'd have missed it. No diss to anybody that just want to look at it that way or see it that way or whatever. But for folk that are you know, interested in nation building and for African liberation and, you know, things of that nature, and want to approach it in a holistic way, that's what this is. And what it is transcends space and time. You know, because the clock is the clock. Cosmos are the cosmos. If that makes sense.
Makes perfect sense. So your family, right, and your collections of family. At the beginning, I talked about family being our oldest religion, right? How has the reintegration of the traditions of the Nile Valley practically impacted your family's life?
I said, you know, my family comes together. Let's say we can say Shai on one hand, right? Of course. But understand by Shai I mean destiny, right? Understanding destiny and also obedience to divination, right? Because we come to, I say, you know, the Hamat Nsw Aankh, you know, came to me at a time when, you know, I ain't gonna say I was no red pillar, right? Definitely wasn't no red pillar, right? But I might have been trying to be a hood polygamist at the time, right? I might have been, you know, definitely not trying to be locked down, right? Or in you know, a relationship. And so it was spirit and intuition, those thoughts, you know, seeing the way she worked, the way she moved, right? The disposition, you know, that started having those thoughts, marriage. So what I do, I go to Tahuti's shrine and do divination on the thoughts. Yo, why am I thinking this? Did they say seek matrimonial alliance? Huh? At the time I was on. What does that mean? I wasn't in sync with the. I was, from a logical perspective, an intellectual perspective, what I thought I wanted wasn't in accord with the time. So I'll go to the shrine, and the oracle informs me of the time. Seek matrimonial alliance. I'm a soldier. Sa Heru Behu dead. All right. So the one, how you say, the one redeeming quality, if I have it, right, is that I'm obedient. I've never been disobedient, even as a shorty, even as a pitney, even as a child. I've never been disobedient. So, the oracle say, yes, sir. So what did I do? Very next day, I want to be my wife. Very next day. Very next day. Didn't take long. We wasn't, uh together that long before that. You know? Shit, I never asked her if she wanted to be my girlfriend. We didn't go through a girlfriend and boyfriend stage. Do you want to be? Do you want to walk with me? I'm gonna be honest. I don't even know where the hell we going, shorty. But do you want to walk with me? This is before I ever find out she's a medium. She says, okay. And then maybe about a week, two, later, boom! Find out she's a medium. What does that do? Now, like, okay, we're beginning this journey together. I've been having experiences, encounters with the Neteru, and my own experiences, and them coming, and ancestors coming and giving instructions, and now the Ter and the ancestors and Shai has brought to me, right, who's served as their oracle. Their oracle to give us our instructions. That's when I say I told Nsw couple weeks ago, maybe. When Maria and I first got together, after we found out that she was a medium, you better believe how you say, yo, every single day, rituals, she possessing ancestors and that rule every single day. I'm sitting at her feet asking them questions every single day. Q&A. Like damn guru and disciple every single day. Like to the point of exhaustion. That's the sacrifice that she was willing to make for me. you know, and it was like that for over a decade for sure, years. It's not, I say, it's just now kind of slowed down to where, she only bring them down every now and then, maybe for the festivals, or if it's something critical that, okay, you know, I can't figure it out through the oracles instead of third or through the Bible or whatever, I need you to look at this for me, right? But every step of the way, the tradition brought us together, and I know for a fact I'm not I'm not easy. I'm not an easy uh, person. I'm not an easy person. Um, my convictions, my ambitions, the vision that I've been given, you know, is unfathomable for most at best and delusional for some at worst. Your own nation, your own, huh? Right? You gonna do what, huh? And then to be convicted and convinced that this is going to be, and this is it. There's no contingency. It's all or nothing. And to navigate that, believe in that, and even in moments of why the hell you doing that though? What this got to do with that though? Right? Like, the only way it works is if I have a wife that is just as obedient as I am to tradition. She's a soldier, just like me, who is obedient to the divination, who will check in, who has the courage to challenge her own thoughts and perspective and run them by the oracles, run them by the ancestors, run them by the shrines, you know, and actually, you know, update, upgrade, like internal audit and do the Benu thing. That's the only way it works, and that's how it works. And we've utilized the tradition, in Hininsu, right? Which we found Hininsu together. We found it, right? Established Hininsu together. Um, and in Hininsu, we marry under a chair. So what that means is every person has a destiny reading, but everything in life has an Eter that's over it. So your life has an Eter that's over it. Your job has an Eter, like your destined career has an Eter that's over it. But guess what? Your marriage has an Eter that's over it. And the success of that marriage depends on your ability to live out the ka, live out the spirit, live out the principles, live out the laws of that deity. And the failure to do so results in the failure of the marriage. Point blank and simple. So do I declare that for us, that deity is Tahuti? So I think it's this. Well, I think it's that. I think you're wrong. I don't give a damn. Right? So what do? Tahuti. She says this, I say is that. What do you say? Oh, it ain't this or that. It's actually this. Oh, okay. Friends again. Right? Or what? You was right. Friends again. Let's go the way you suggested. You the obedience to tradition, the obedience to and concession to receiving the Madunate through the oracle takes the ego out of it. Because Ma'at is the goal. And as long as that's the goal, can't fail. Because it's not about you being right. It's about you being right. It's about y'all being right. You know what I mean? So that's how it's, the tradition brought us together, and that's how the tradition keeps us together. We do divination every day. You know what I'm saying? Not like on some, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, we're at odds across, but no. Like just in everything that we do, divination, because Tahuti is so important, right? In our marriage, for me, I'm a priest of Tahuti. Right? This is the, this is just the culture. My children do divination. This is the family, this is the family culture, right? So like every step of the way, we're playing it out, right? If I say, because I'm a child of Behudet, if I wasn't a priest of Tahuti, and if I wasn't, if Tahuti wasn't over our marriage as well, I'm the do it now, apologize later person. I say better to ask for forgiveness than permission person, right? I'm that person. Oh, what's the order? Boom, I'm gone. Right? I say you gotta think about tact, or no. I say just do it, right? I'm that individual. Absolutely. So the obedience to the divination allows me not to get in my own way and mess things up where I could absolutely mess things up, And I'm sure she will say the same, right? But yeah, that's that's how it works.
So where can people find out more about Nsw, about the Khu Khem Kemet Tours, about Khu Khem, and about authentic Nile Valley culture and tradition?
So I say, if you want to know more about Nsw, right? You can visit us at our website, www.henensu.com. That's HENENSU.com. you know, and on there you find information about, you know, the community, find information about the tour, right? Khu Khem Kemet Tour. And, you know, you can subscribe and sign up for, you know, updates to um, stay abreast of when we'll, you know, when we'll be doing, you know, different events, and as well as the you know, the tours to the continent, right? The definitely gonna be looking to go to Kemet next year, and you know, maybe some other places as well. Right, so you wanna check in, but you know, also you want to, you know, sign up to stay in the loop, because we're actually going to be doing like a um kind of like an orientation, like a introductory type of um orientation, you know, open up, you know, for people to be introduced to the culture and tradition and the practice, um you know, kind of like a 101 type of thing. You know, introduction to the language, you know, Madunatera language, how to read it, and so on and so forth. Um, introduction to Nile Valley culture and tradition. Um, introduction to um, divination or ritual, you know, Iriaket Raneb, or the daily rituals, right? Introduction to like the basic um you know basic form, right? Our you know basic oracle, the ujo, right? Which, you know, I'm saying basic, that's not to like downplay the importance, but this is like the easiest one, right? Like anybody can do it first time trying, and you know, it's real easy yes or no that's attached to your shrine. So the course will culminate in, you know, it's a 3 month course, right? Where you'll be learning the language, learning the culture, the tradition, um, the daily rituals, cosmologies, and so on and so forth. And then it'll culminate in you actually erecting your first two shrines, your Anpu shrine, right? You know, for the open of the way, and your Osef Kintiamitiyu shrine, which is your ancestral shrine, right? Your ancestor shrine. So it'll culminate in that, and you learn Ujo, the basic divination that we use at every shrine to interface with that shrine and ask yes or no questions, and you know, to be able to kind of discern you know you know what the Nater stance is on this or that, you know, whether you should do this or that, um, you know, or as it pertains to offerings, right? Do you want this? Do you want that? Blah, 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 right? So this is like something that we're going to be doing very soon, right? And you know, you want to, you know, lock in with the site, you know, so that you can know when we go live with it. And it's something we're going to be doing on a seasonal basis. So every 3 months it'll kind of renew. Pardon me. So that's the that is the that's something that's, you know, that's up and coming soon, right? So you want to, you know, check out the website. Also the books, right? Remember Gosser, Benjamin Gosser, even my first book, The Key to Eden, you know, you can find on Nsw.com as well. All right. Beyond that, I'm on most of the socials. You type in my Nsw Aankh Benu, you'll be able to find, you know, me on most of the socials, and then also you can, I say we have Nsw pages also. on the socials as well.